Hey you guys, welcome to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm Jules. I'm 24 years old, living in San Diego, California, and I make content surrounding personal finance, lifestyle, travel, and beauty. In today's video, we're going to be going over my Australia budget, and I'm a little scared. I'm not gonna lie, I did spend a lot of money, I will say. I definitely did. But it's okay because I love traveling. If it's one thing about me is I would prioritize travel over a lot of things, especially over material objects. Like designer things I don't really care for. I do have like one designer item and I'm like, I don't even use it that much. I think it's a waste of money. Maybe if I was like rich, I would spend money on it, but I'm not. So I would rather spend my money on I would rather spend my money on experiences and traveling and getting to see different cultures and live different experiences rather than having materialistic items. That's just me, where I'm at in this stage of my life currently, what I prioritize, but to each their own. If you like spending on materialistic things, if you think travel is stupid, that's your opinion and you're entitled to that. But here we're going to be talking about my traveling. So let's jump right in. So I just came back from Australia. I went from mid-January to mid-February, so it was during their high season during the summer for them. And I did book this trip out pretty far in advance. I want to say I booked both my plane ticket and my group tour around May or June, so it was like 9 months out. So luckily the plane tickets were cheap. I wouldn't say cheap, were inexpensive compared to how much they usually would be. I had the best time in Australia. I went by myself, but I did a 3-week group tour, and I had a few days before where I went to Noosa just by myself. I think I was there for like 3 days, then had my group tour for 3 weeks. It did get cut short. I'll link my Australia vlogs above if you want to see what I got into. But I did a group tour for pretty much 3 weeks, and then I had 1 extra week by myself where I was in Sydney staying in Bondi. I did go to Australia 2 years prior and absolutely fell in love with it, so I had to come back. I will say that it was a really great experience. I met so many people that I hope I could say are going to be like lifelong pen pal friends, if you will, or like social media friends at this point, because pretty much all of them are from Europe. A lot of them were English and some from other European countries, but yeah, I was the only American there. But I really did have fun. I enjoyed it. There was, you know, when you're traveling, there's a lot of hiccups and you'll kind of see that shown in my budget, but overall the trip was a success, and I would really recommend if you're thinking about going to Australia, this is kind of what you can expect. I will say Australia is a very, very expensive country. Probably one of the most expensive countries in the world. If you're from California or like New York City, I would say, or just New York in general, honestly, the prices are pretty on par with California, New York prices. I think when I was in Bondi though, that was kind of like the most expensive area that I experienced. Like food, pasta was like $40 a dish and it was crazy. So yeah, if you are thinking about going to Australia, please be mindful that it is very expensive. Right now as I'm filming this, if you're American, the conversion rate is in our favor. So I think it's around 1 Australian dollar will cost you 65 US cents, and if you're from the UK it's about half, so one Australian dollar will cost you 50 pence. So keep that in mind. If you're Canadian, I think the conversion's still on your side. I want to say it's closer to 1 to 1 than it is with US or British pounds, but yeah, I just want to emphasize that Australia is very expensive and you will see that in this budget. But like I said, I was there for pretty much 4 weeks, so I did spend a bag. Let's just jump right in. This budget isn't cute, but you know, she did the job. So as you can see, so I categorized everything. So flights, for example, I budgeted $1,300. I spent pretty much on par $1,272.22. This consisted of my round trip flight from the US to Australia and then a couple domestic flights within Australia. So my international flight came out to $917.90, and that was to get to Australia. It was from LAX to Sydney and Sydney to LAX, which, considering this is actually really cheap. When I first went to Australia 2 years ago, I want to say I paid closer around to $1,600 or $1,500. The flight is like 15 hours on the way there, 14 hours on the way back. It is very far, and you're over the ocean basically the whole time, at least if you're on the west coast of the US. It is a very expensive trip, and this was on the lower end of that spectrum. What else? I had a couple flights. So when I landed in Sydney, I went to Noosa and then for a few days, and then I had to go back to Sydney from Noosa. So I spent $103.79 to get there, $77.28 to get back. So basically, once I got back to Sydney from Noosa, I started my group trip and we went up the East Coast, and we're supposed to end in Cairns. And then from Cairns, I was gonna go back down to Sydney once again to stay for the week before I left Australia. And I had paid for a ticket to get from Cairns to Sydney. Unfortunately, my group trip got cut short due to like weather interruptions. So I was in Airlie Beach when it got canceled, and so I ended up having to change my flight from Cairns to Sydney to Airlie Beach to Sydney. With the cancellation of the flight and everything, I ended up still paying $13 out of pocket for that, which is, you know, things happen. I think you have to account for like 10-15% extra of what you're gonna pay, or plan to spend about 10% just on stuff that goes wrong or whatever. So, I mean, nothing I could really do about that. And then I had to rebook my flight from Airlie Beach to Sydney, and that costed $160. So in total, I spent pretty much on par $1,300. Accommodation, I unfortunately did have to spend a little bit more because, like I said, a lot of things kind of went wrong towards the end. I'm still waiting to hear back from my trip insurance because I did file some claims a couple weeks ago, but I haven't heard back. So I think it might be a while before I even get any money back. But hopefully this will be closer to the $1,300 because I did have to spend money out of pocket due to cancellations. So, I mean, it is what it is. I spent $1481.92. I got an Airbnb in both Noosa and Sydney, and so I had to pay for half of that when I booked the accommodation. And then when I got there, like a few days before I got to my accommodation, I had to pay again. So Noosa, I stayed 3 nights and it was around $460, and then I stayed in Bondi for like 8 nights and that was like $900. There should be another charge, yeah, down here. And then this was for the extra night because I originally was supposed to stay in the Airbnb for 6 nights, but then I went down to Sydney early by a couple days because my trip got canceled, so I paid for 2 extra nights, which added $133. And then I planned to stay 2 nights in a hostel once I got down to Sydney, so that came out to around $140. However, when I rebooked my flight from Cairns to Sydney to Airlie Beach to Sydney, of course, my flight got canceled from Airlie Beach, so I had to stay 1 extra night in the accommodation I was in, and basically lost out on the money I spent for the hostel. So that was one thing that I filed a claim for on my insurance, but like I said, I haven't heard anything back, so that is what it is so far. My group trip, I knew it was going to cost this much. I only spent $25.31, and it would have actually been like closer to this number, but I did get about like a $300 Australian dollar refund, which is about $200 US, due to the trip being canceled a couple days early. So they did give me back a little bit of money for that, so that is why this number's a couple $100 lower. Then Visa, I paid $12.46. This was just to pay for a tourist visa to get into the country. Then trip insurance, I planned $150. I spent $111.83. This was for like a basic travel insurance package for like 3 weeks. Transportation, I budgeted $300, spent $245. I spent almost $60 just to get from San Diego to LA because I took a shuttle bus to get there. I did a couple Ubers, so $7, $8, $35. What else? I did a Lime scooter, which cost $14, $9, $10. Cab ride, $5. I deleted that. I don't know why. Uber, which is $30. Wait, Uber, which is $30. Public transportation I took a couple times when I was in Sydney, so $4, $6, 4, 8, 2, and then Uber to the airport, which was $45. So a little bit under budget there, which is good. Now to the part where I spent way too much money. Please don't judge. I went wild. I went feral for the clothes. I kind of touched on this during my March reset as well as my vlogs. If you want to go see my shopping haul, check that out on my Australian vlogs. And then I did go over my February budget, which consisted of like half of this amount. But basically, long story short, so I was originally going to spend only $500 or give myself a budget of $500 for Australia, but I also did go to Europe over the holidays because my sister lives in Germany, and so my immediate family wanted to go have like a European Christmas, so I went to a couple different countries in Europe, and I was gonna give myself $500 there as well. But I actually didn't really find any clothes that I wanted, so I think I spent like $20 out of the $500. So I was like, okay, I already have the money I set aside because I save up for my vacations in advance. I don't just like spend money as I'm there. I like to save up for my vacations, have a certain number in mind that I want to have saved that I think I'm going to spend. So like for example, I saved, you know, this $8,000. Like I saved about $8,000 for this trip. But basically, I was like, oh, I didn't spend any of my $500. I'll add that $500 from my Europe trip and I'll add it to my Australia trip, so I'll give myself $1,000. I just put 800 because, you know, whatever, to be safe. But as you can see, that did not happen. I pretty much doubled that. Well, I did double that because the clothes were just so cute. I'm so sorry. I know, so bad of me, but the clothes were just so stunning. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna be here for a while. A lot of the stores I went to were like Australian boutique stores. I'm sure they sell online, but I was like, well, I'm here, the conversion's a little better, so it's like a little bit cheaper than what I would be paying if I were to buy it home. And yeah, I just went feral, so I really have no excuse other than that the clothes were really cute. So as you can see, I shopped like 5 different times, I want to say. I went to Dish, I spent $151. It was really hot, so I got a fan, I guess. I considered that. I went to Kukai. I don't know if that's how you say it. Please forgive me if I said that wrong. I went there a couple times. If you're ever in Australia, please go there. I absolutely adored the store. Please come to California. I absolutely loved this store. I went 3 different times. I spent $57 at Witchery, and I literally just got one thing, but it was like a linen top, and I was like, well, the material's good, so I'm 100% whatever. Zara, I spent $85. I do regret that, I'm not gonna lie. I saw the price tags after the fact, or like as he was ringing me up, and I should have just returned it, but it's fine. Glassons, I spent $32. I got my boyfriend some rugby shorts, so that was $45. I got some jewelry, which was $25. I got a souvenir shirt, $19. And then here's where I spent a lot of money. So I went to 1 Mile in Bondi, that was $400. Kukai again, $196. Kukai again, $366. And that is how I ended up spending $1,500 on clothes. I will say though that I don't really buy clothes that often, so I want to say I probably spend $1,500 on clothes a year, like in a year's worth. I don't buy clothes that often, like maybe once a quarter, and it'll be like $200, $300. So I basically shouldn't shop for the rest of the year because I basically spent my whole year's worth of clothing budget in a month. Also, where I went a lot over, which I'm not gonna lie, I kind of figured that this would happen, but I was trying so hard not to spend a lot of money on food, but I did. I lumped food, drinks, grocery store runs. In here, I was there for like 30 days, so, and I gave myself $1,000, but I spent $1,331.63. I think because food there is pretty expensive, also drinks, like going out and getting cocktails or whatever, so expensive. So I'm not gonna beat myself up too bad on this. I knew $1,000 was gonna be tight. It is what it is. $75 on an eSIM. I spent $76.67, so pretty much on par. And then miscellaneous, I was gonna give myself $100. I spent $62.37, so I included sunscreen here, the handheld fan, because I ended up getting a couple because they were pretty cheap and I broke them a lot. Laundry, a pharmacy run. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I skipped activities completely. Okay, sorry. So I had budgeted $500 for activities. I only spent $193.27. I spent $57.92 on Get Your Guide. What did I do? Oh, this was for the Noosa Everglades. I did like a day tour to the Everglades. I had to pay a levy for going to the Whitsundays on my group trip. I did a scenic flight in Kagari Island. I got a massage, so that was $57. This would have been probably $200 more expensive because I was supposed to do a scenic flight over the Whitsunday Islands and Great Barrier Reef, but like I mentioned earlier, the weather wasn't good. There was like a cyclone going on when I was there, so unfortunately that did get canceled. That was supposed to be around $200, so I didn't do that. So this would have been closer to $400 if I had done that, but like I said, it got canceled unfortunately, so that is why that is so low. In total, I had budgeted $8,325, and in reality I spent $8,856.16, so I was over by $531.16. Am I mad about it? No, because only the Zara thing. I regret spending $80 at Zara, but besides that, you know, I'm pretty happy with what I spent, how I spent it. Obviously, if I hadn't spent $1,500 on clothing, this would have been pretty much even with what I had projected, but you know, I'm not gonna worry about it as long as I wear the clothes and get use out of it, you know, it's fine. You know, I'm not too mad that I spent that money when I was abroad. You know, I did have to out of pocket pay like the $500 because I hadn't budgeted for that, but it's all good. I had that money through, you know, working, things like that, so I'm not too stressed about it. I think a lot of people go over their budgets when it comes to traveling, and I will say, since I was a bit under budget on my Europe trip, I also did a what I spent in Europe during the winter, but since I was a bit under budget on that, I wasn't too stressed about this trip because I had the money there from what I didn't spend in Europe, so not too mad about it. I hope this gives you like perspective on how expensive Australia really is, and I'm sure you could do it for way cheaper using credit card points to book your flights or accommodations, and then staying in hostels is a great way to lower your expenses, especially when it comes to accommodation. But things like food and like the activities, you know, you can't really get around. Those things are expensive. Obviously, you can like shop at like the grocery stores and things like that to lower the costs. But yeah, I mean, Australia is just one of the most expensive places. So, you know, take that as you will. I would just say plan accordingly, plan to have a little bit more money than you think you're gonna spend, because yeah, it's an expensive country. Yeah, I hope this gave you like some perspective on how much it really costs to go to Australia. Like I said, I went for 4 weeks, so just keep that in mind as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.